Hello, welcome to Studies in Theatre MOOC program, and we are discussing today contemporary issues in theatre. This lecture is having a relook at some of the important movements and some of the important terminologies that are present in theatre in today's times, and how they have different meanings, different shape, different shades, which is important for us to understand in order to perform theatre, in order to produce theatre, in order to study theatre, as well as to watch theatre. So let us carry on. The history of contemporary theatre dates back to the 18th century with the advent of the avant-garde movement. As you know, that avant-garde movement, which originated in Paris, which supported the free thinking in the world of art and breaking away the hegemony of traditionality, the structured presence of rules and regulations, the restrictions of following certain patterns. So, avant-garde movement liberated artistic endeavors from various kinds of hegemonic presence. Those have been discussed many times in various discussions, but here today it's important in this lecture to have a relook at those things because we are talking about those things in present context. So if you look at the present context, what is contemporary theatre? Contemporary theatre is the theatre that is taking place right now, the theatre that is taking place in our lifetime, the theatre that we are watching or we are doing or we are critiquing. So in this theatre, how the movement that took place in 18th century, how it has influenced or how it can be of any purpose. It can be purpose, it has its value because this change that we began in 2 centuries back, that is in 18th century, more than 250 years or 200 years ago, the change that happened is a very important shift towards the acceptance of experimentation and consistent desire, consistent method of not allowing or not letting any one particular set of rules to dominate the scene. With this, nothing has remained forever, nothing has remained, in fact, for a long time, ever since this avant-garde movement. Everything is short-lived or it survives the test of time if it is of use for the new world, new times and new audience. So these are the important things that we are going to look at in this particular discussion. Today, theatre is a blend of dance, music, compositions, various dance forms and various other kinds of stage performances. Well, there are discussions that sometimes say that when we are doing this kind of theatre, we should not call it theatre, but we should call it performance. So, performance, no doubt, is an inclusive word and it is a bigger term where theatre is also included. But in studies in theatre context, it's significant to understand that it's not just performance that has become inclusive, but all the aspects of performance or all the kinds of performative arts have become inclusive. Theatre therefore has also redefined itself, has taken a new shape and a new position wherein place for all kinds of performers is present on stage, is present in productions. So dance is also part of theatre, music compositions are also part of theatre and various other kinds of stage performances are also part of theatre. You can find, circus element present in theatre productions. You can find various live arts being created, live artifacts being created in productions. You can find live painting, live music, live sculpting. You can see various, sometimes various different kinds of spaces like kitchen, or back offices are also opening their doors and are present on stage. People have been looking at cooking happening on stage, or yoga happening on stage. So it's so different, it's including everything. When I say happening on stage, I mean to say that it's part of theater, it's happening as part of performance. um, the different kinds of forms are merged together, different kinds of arts are blending to create theater. So this is contemporary situation. The pictures that you see right now, you can see that there is a chair, there is a table, there is green color, there is gray color, there is a gate, there are characters moving in and out of that gate. And it is a very modern stage, it's a very modern perspective that is shown. The light is totally different now. Light, as you can see, is used in the backdrop of black color, which provides depth to the scenario. Then in the next picture you can see so many colors are used, and the stage is elaborate as well as it is minimal. It is using colors, but it is also using one particular dominating light, which enhances the darkness, the depth in the backdrop. This presentation is a very important thing for contemporary theatre. Contemporary theatre is telling new stories, new techniques, but at the same time, in its in its vision, in its visual impact, it is so different that it stands completely distinct from what was happening earlier. But it is definitely the result of all that has happened in the past cultures, past styles, and past performance movements. So, contemporary theatre is now a place where anything is possible. Everything is possible. There are no limitations. There is no restriction. Whatever is possible can be created, and whatever can be created is made possible through technique and innovation. That is the crux of contemporary theatre. The next aspect we come to is Indian contemporary theatre. Now, my students, it's very significant to understand the scenario of Indian performance, because Indian theatre has revolutionized itself in the last 100 years. From colonial phase to post colonial phase, Indian contemporary theatre has emerged as a very strong representation of art, culture, literature, ideas, politics, and whatnot. We began our journey in proscenium style of theatre not very long ago. We did have our indigenous performance traditions, even though we lost Sanskrit theatre tradition much earlier. But there were different kinds of indigenous theatre traditions that existed. If you travel any part of this country, you will find that theatre traditions are there. People are dancing or singing or telling mythological stories or celebrating festivals, celebrating harvest season. So there are specific dance, there are specific plays, there are specific dance dramas, there are specific cultural festivals. All these are there, and they have now become important aspects of Indian theatre scenario. How this has happened, we can have a look at various examples. For example, when you look at the Marathi theatre, when you look at plays like Kashiram Kotwal, or when you look at Sakharam Binder, or you find that there is a use of techniques of lavani, techniques of tamasha. Music and dance is made part of the storytelling, the plot of the character, the plot of the plays. Then if you look at plays like Jatra tradition, Jatra is a moving theatre, traveling performance culture of Bengal, of Jharkhand, especially Bengal. And when you see that Jatra tradition is used in modern theatre as well, then when you look at plays of innovations where Nautanki tradition has been used, indigenous Nautanki tradition has been used to present modern plays. The plays are written in Nautanki style and they are performed in Nautanki style. There, you look at the other plays like traditions like Yakshigan, Terukutu, Bharatnatyam, Kuchipudi, Bhavai, Chau, Bhand Pathar, all these different traditions of India have become united, have become very organically part of the theatre culture. And they are present in different plays, whether they are written in modern languages, they are written in English language or they are written in vernacular languages. You find that these traditions are present. It is a reference to the ideation. It is a reference to the experientiality of people who are part of that culture. That it is important to bring in those traditions which speak best in the best way about their representation, their embodiment. So, in the 19th century, in the late 19th century, when British had come to India, they had been there for for a couple of decades, and by the late 19th century, the Indian theatre started getting influence with the British theatre, because with the British came the Shakespearean theatre, the troops that were traveling with the British people. They used to come and they used to perform their plays. Those plays were seen by the artists and the playwrights and uh, people, the cultural activists of India, and they started either translating Shakespeare or they started writing their own plays in different styles that could be that were inspired by those British plays, those Shakespearean plays. Then it was a proscenium style of theatre. What British brought to India was a proscenium style of theatre. And before that, proscenium was present in India, but it was not present in the form where plays would be performed or things like that. Plays were generally performed in courtyards, in open spaces, in the temple courtyards, or in the open gardens, fields. These performances would take place. Now, these performances were adopted to be presented on stage in the proscenium, and for that stories were written, plays were written. The plays were written either in poetry, plays were written either in prose, both combining prose and poetry, both with songs, with music, with live singing, with live music, because that is the spirit of Indian performance tradition, where live singing, live music is there, vocalists are there, and people are either playing some musical instrument and singing and performing at the same time. One very simple performance traditions like Pandavani in Chhattisgarh, and Hari Katha, in which one single instrument is there in the hands of the performer, and the performer tells the story, plays that instrument. The performer sometimes had cymbals in his or her legs, feet, and they tell the story, they enact different characters, they play that musical instrument, which is generally ek tara, having one wire, one string. So these kinds of traditions have started becoming part of the proscenium theatre, proscenium plays. And the first performance was carried out in 1795 on a short play by Paul Jodrell. From 1830s to 1840s, Calcutta served as the stage where contemporary theatre started evolving and taking shape. So, as I enumerated so many performance traditions, they gradually started becoming the resources for the stories, the resources for the costume changes, the innovations, and the body movement, the gestures, the hand movements for the theater people to borrow from, and start creating a shape and size and structure and context of a very different kind, where Indianness was the essence, although it was being presented on the proscenium, but Indianness was at its core. Now you can see the three pictures that are present before you. These pictures are telling you the story of that kind, where which I have been talking of. These are Indian attires, these are Indian colors, the style, the body language is totally different from the pictures that you see in the Western performances. And there's lavani, there is dance. So this is, and these are plays where these things are happening. So this is contemporary Indian theatre. If you look at plays of Girish Karnad, if you look at plays of Badal Sarkar, if you look at plays of Habib Tanveer, if you look at plays of Vijay Tendulkar, or many other playwrights across India, from Bengali playwrights to Marathi playwrights to Tamil and Malayali playwrights to Kashmiri playwrights, Aga Hasht Kashmiri, or Hindi playwrights, Bharatendu Harishchandra. You find that plays are very different now. It's the Sanskrit classical tradition which was lost, stands in our foundation, but we have so much to look forward to, and we so much to borrow from our context of colors, costumes, context, stories, that Indian theatre becomes a very rich paradigm which offers stories, which offers ideas, which offers revolutionary contexts, and it also supports various activisms. For example, during the Indian freedom struggle, plays were used to protest, plays were used to assert the identity of Indianness, plays were used to raise awareness among the Indians against the atrocities of the British. So Bijon Bhattacharya's play, and play Nobarna is a very important example of that kind. So it's crucial to understand that contemporary Indian theatre is the result, or is a project in making, because it is happening all the time, and it has resulted from various kinds of things that happened in the recent past, in 100 years or 150 years, under the influence of British, under the influence of various writers, various countries which visited India to colonize it. So it's a mix of everything put together. Now, moving on, there are other issues of contemporary theatre which we need to address, and this opens our mind to think in a different direction, because whatever we have been saying about what is Indianness, what is Europeanness, etc., etc., or what is Western theatre, what is movement, what is style, what is genre, that gets completely redefined when we put all these things in the perspective of contemporariness. So, society reflects in theatre and addresses the critical issues. So, the present theatre is talking of the problems of today's times, problems of racism, problems of neoliberal world order, problems of terrorism, problems of nationalism, hyper nationalism, jingoism, problems of urbanization that is happening in countries like ours, the fast urbanization, problems of environment, problems of gender issues, LGBTQ theatre issues. So these are the topics that are reflected in today's theatre. It is a tool to bring social reform. We When we say that it is a tool to bring social reform, we must not understand that when somebody watches a play, a person will undergo some kind of change, or society will undergo a kind of change. What we should say is, what we should understand from this is that it initiates responses among audience, it initiates dialogues among audience, it creates a kind of awareness among audience, and it creates responses among audience, among people, because plays are reviewed very thoroughly now. Plays are very well, any performance is covered very well in media, and people have reviews to read. People write their responses and review it on social media platforms. So it becomes very much possible for us to create a dialogue, to create a discussion, to initiate some kind of awareness about it. Then avoiding or ignoring the issue prevalent in the society might cause inertia and stagnation in the society. So if theater does not respond to it, or if theater does not, if or if any art form keeps ignoring what is happening in the society, or if society in general keeps ignoring its own changes, its own dynamism, then there will be inertia and stagnation, and that is very, very antithetical to the spirit of progress, to the spirit of looking forward. So that is a crucial thing that we must understand when we are talking about the contemporariness in theatre and looking at how theatre is taking its shape today. Then representation and diversity. The matter of representation and diversity is one of the most important aspects of theatre. One of the most important aspects of today's art representation. Uh, Marginalized people, underprivileged societies, underprivileged issues of the underprivileged people, poor people, people living below poverty line, people who are exploited for various reasons, people who are suffering for various reasons. Either they are living in a clash-stricken society, they are living in a society or a country where there is a war going on, or they are living in a certain space where there is a scarcity of water, or there is gender problem, there is lack of security, there is environmental problem, there is terrorist problem, there is rights are not provided, dictatorial regimes are there, political order is not there, corruption is there. So these things become very important for theatre to cater to address to. And today's theatre, therefore, when it speaks or represents these issues, it becomes diverse, and it is addressing diversity to such an extent that today it is not possible for us to create a categorization of the kinds of plays that are being written and created all over the world. You will not be able to categorize them in one or two or five or 10 categories. It is so vibrant, it is so different, because hundreds of issues are there, and those issues need to be represented in order to create a perspective for theatre, and in order to make society watch and listen and respond to something that it may not want to listen, watch, or respond to, or it may not have it may have forgotten about it. So it's a, and the most important thing is it's a representation. Theater has become a matter of representation. Theater has become a matter of documentation as well. It documents the pain, the trauma, and the problems of people by converting them into an artwork, a production that stays forever. And once it is watched, it is in public domain, and it cannot be undone. So these are the important aspects. Diversity has become so crucial to as a political discourse, as a narrative in media, as a narrative in social circles, but it is also a very important trope in theatre, and it gives vibrance to theatre. Diversity at the level of theme is one thing, but diversity at the level of production process, at the level of using a diverse range of theatre forms and diverse range of art forms to make it more and more inclusive is another thing. So we need to understand diversity at both levels. It's not just about one level of diversity, it's about the other aspect of diversity as well. And that is, as you can see, the plays, maybe you may have languages in the play, which languages which are considered dialects, not the languages. And performing in dialects has become a very crucial thing for supporting people who speak dialects, and people who are illiterate, people who did not have access to education. So their representation becomes possible when we are making this kind of diversity available in theatre. From in cast to storytelling, contemporary Indian theatre lags behind in so showing the inclusivity and diversity. So we need to do more. It's not sufficient. You are watching this lecture, you are listening to this lecture, you are participating in this course. I urge you to think of what you can do in your part of this country to address the issues that others have not done, that others have not done, because it is not possible for one playwright or one particular production company or one theater group to keep on doing plays of different kinds for all the people. It's many people will have to come forward in order to cater to the different kinds of requirements of diversity. And though a lot has been happening, but it's pretty done undone is still very vast. Now, the other aspect is financial sustainability. That's a very crucial issue in theatre. Today, you can always wonder why this question has figured here at this point, because this question is there because theatre is not now living only on the patronages provided by kings and queens. Theatre has become a profession. Theatre is a field where people have to work and earn and make it profitable. Many a times that becomes very difficult, and there are the spaces which patronize theatre and arts and culture are so competitive that it is not possible for many people to get such opportunities. So audience is also is a big problem because so many entertainment sources are there, and production and properties are becoming expensive because of the inflation. So sustainability in terms of finances is a big challenge and an issue for today's theatre people and theatre culture. We need to think ways in which we can address this. The next issue is about accessibility. Financial and physical are two main factors which are affecting the accessibility of people in theatre. You can see access is of two kind. Today you have, if you go to any play and if it's a good theatre, or if you want everyone should watch it, you need to make that stage and theatre accessible to different kinds of people. People who are challenged, physically challenged, should also be able to access theatre. They should also be able to move there. This is a crucial issue in today's contemporary performance space. Production and theatre tickets are not matched with each other. Sometimes production is very high and tickets do not earn the money back for fulfilling the production value. And still some people do keep going on with some kind of help or some kind of resources, but that's a big challenge. So this is one thing. Accessibility needs to be generated, and accessibility is an issue in today's theatre culture. Then technological integration, which has been discussed many times, but at this juncture it is important to look at technological integration, keeping in mind that technology is not just a support system now. Sometimes technology becomes trope also in the play, in the theatre. Technology can become the mainstay of theatre. So we think of from different perspectives that in what sense technology is to be utilized and is made part of. Is Technologies provide more space for creativity, innovation, and realism. It is also becoming a challenge to adapt the technology in theatre, because theatre is not a very well provided field, especially in countries like ours. And therefore, when we hire technology or when we hire technical help, it always requires money. So we are sometimes lagging behind in the use of technology. Well, it can always be said that theatre does not depend on technology, because technology is not one of the organic aspects of theatre. But why should we not experiment with it? Maybe it will develop into a very different aspects, and in the times to come, it is going to be inevitable for us to coexist with technology in theatre, because it's the digital world that is going to rule the roost. And if theatre is not going to respond to it in creative as well as intellectual way, then it will be a big problem. So the cost of technology, the maintenance, and other sophistication of technological integration, they require a lot of investment. This needs to be resolved, but it's not easy to resolve. It can only be resolved when people who are into theatre are also technically expert. So multitasking is very important for people who are trying to take theatre forward. Earlier a playwright would also the multitasking in theatre was limited to looking at, you have to know the costume, you have to know the production, you have to know the lighting. But today it's not just that multitasking, it's more. You need to know technology, you need to know editing, you need to know the lighting, you need to know the acoustics, you need to handle the console. So that is also part of theatre, and technological integration is necessary. Then social relevant storytelling. It is becoming hard to have a balance between socio-cultural and political sensitivity of theatre performances, because many a times productions can get into controversy, reactions are so fast, they get trolled, and sometimes it becomes too difficult to face this kind of reaction, and that often has a very negative impact, and there is life threatening situation also. So there is a need for catering to artistic freedom. It is a social responsibility, and it's a big challenge for all of us in this world. That on one hand everything is developing so fast, but on the other hand there are some specific kind of freedom issues that we need to address to, and it's a social responsibility of all of us to look at how we can create better space and better work culture for people who want to tell their stories and they are not impacted negatively. How we can guarantee them security, and how we can create narrative around it by not just putting it on governments to do their bit, but also generating awareness in society about how this is important for theatre to survive. But this has to come from within. It's about, first of all, the theatre people, they need to start talking about it. It cannot be a knee-jerk reaction when only once in a while something happens and people take out agitations or protest and then they go back and forget about it. It has to be done in a sustained manner. Like, we have to be tolerant towards the productions and plays of those kinds which we may not agree with, but we can think of some midway where feelings are not hurt, people are not offended, and yet creativity has its own way, and messages are delivered, and social issues are taken forward. Then environment sustainability, labor equity, and fair wages. That again is a very significant thing. Due to growing environmental concerns, theatre props and places are getting costly. But we also should think that environmental issues need to be addressed, are required to be addressed in today's theatre culture, because sustainable and recyclable properties should be used or are required to be used. Otherwise, we also create a lot of junk out of our production, out of our properties, and that sometimes is discarded by only after only a couple of stagings. So that sustainability is important. That labor equity, low influx of finance is affecting the labor equity. People who are working in performance spaces are sometimes very badly paid, and many a times, in fact, they are very badly paid. So it becomes a very unattractive option to remain in that field because it ultimately is a profession. So we need to create a balance. These are the issues. This lecture is not about finding a solution, but this lecture is about pointing out your attention that on one hand you are discussing Greek theatre, on one hand you are discussing Elizabethan theatre, on one hand you are discussing the costumes and acting and other things. But at the same time, you also have to be aware of these issues because these are the contemporary issues in theatre. So these are some issues and I will discuss a bit more in my lectures to come. The issues that I have discussed here are those referring to the system, the ecology in which the theatre is staying, the culture, the social order, the political order, the psychological order where theatre has to make space and has to live in an organic way with the people who take it forward. This is for now. The references for the today's discussion are these. Thank you very much. Now I meet you in the next lecture. That's it.